guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining again. Today we have a very special guest, Nolan McClain from Ned Stevens. And Ned Stevens does a number of things. We're going to get into that today. Nolan and I have known each other for years now, Nolan, huh? We go back maybe 4 or 5 years, I think.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to see you in the same position. I mean, that longevity thing, not to say that, but sustainability to me, especially in my industry, is very intriguing, and you're obviously passionate about your job and you're doing things there. So awesome to have you here. You're obviously a vessel of knowledge, and we want to tap that today. Let me just kind of give a little intro to the audience here before I turn it over to you. About who you guys are and what you do as far as I see it. Guys at home that don't know, Ned Stevens Gutter Cleaning was the name that they hit the market with, and it goes way back. And I don't want to speak for Nolan or the company, but in my purview, Ned Stevens was a local entity, maybe just outside the tri-state area. I don't think they started in New Jersey or something. I'm in Connecticut. They were a gutter cleaning operation that really was doing it well and started to scale. And in scaling, they scaled through acquisition primarily, I believe. And so much so, they needed a strong, proper division of the business to manage that. And that is where Nolan stepped in. So I know Nolan is on the M&A, the acquisition side of the business, but Ned Stevens is kind of like a two-headed hydra. You know, it's a two-headed monster. One head is doing the home improvement services, and the other head is acquiring and really working on the business. It's very, very interesting the way that their model is put together, and we're going to learn more from Nolan. Nolan here, on the acquisition side, what I want to do is I had Nolan on today because for all you guys at home that are listening and watching, end game, right? Like, what are we doing here? First of all, before I ramble, Nolan, please, what is your current title, and tell us about the current business name for the company and where you guys stand. Please, shut me up for a second.
Thanks, Frank. So I lead the business acquisitions program at Ned's Home. I started that program 5 years ago when we were Ned Stevens Gutter Cleaning. And Ned Stevens Gutter Cleaning is a business that's been around for 60 years. This is our 60th anniversary, actually, 2025.
60.
And 60th year, yeah. So until someone proves me wrong, I think we're the oldest gutter cleaning company in the country.
I would argue that, sure.
Yeah, speaking of longevity. And we started in northern New Jersey by a milkman, and his name was Ned Stevens. And his customers would ask him to do all sorts of handyman work around their homes. And one thing that nobody wants to do for themselves is clean their own gutters.
That's right.
And so Ned Stevens would help out his customers on his milk route by cleaning their gutters. And eventually he said, wow, if I just show up when I said I was going to show up and I do what I said I was going to do, I can build a real business out of this. And that was 1965. And today we've grown into 22 states. We're not a franchise. It's all our own W-2 employees doing our work. And we rebranded last year from Ned Stevens Gutter Cleaning into Ned's Home.
Ned's Home. Okay. All right. So there is an evolution here.
Exactly.
What is Ned's Home imbibe? What else are you guys doing outside of gutter cleaning?
So we have three main divisions. One is the gutter division, which is gutter cleaning, gutter install, as well as some ancillary services like power wash and dry run cleaning. We have Ned's Pest, which is full service pest control, including mosquito, inside, outside the home services. And then we have Ned's Lawn treatment, which is fertilization, aeration, overseed, all sorts of lawn services, not mow and blow. We're not cutting anyone's lawn, but we're doing the
chemical
more
applications.
Exactly. So
that gets very, very complicated from what my research has told me, where with the licensing and the how you contain it and how you store it, all of that is very regulated these days, correct?
It is, and that's why it takes an expert to do those services. And that's why the way that we got into pest control, the way that we got into lawn care is through acquisition of businesses that have been around for a very long time and had really talented and knowledgeable staff.
Just to give us, and I'm not trying to be nosy here, but I'm sure inquiring minds want to know, how do we gauge how big Ned Stevens, is it Ned Stevens Home or Ned Home?
Ned's Home.
Ned's Home. How large are you guys? You probably don't disclose revenues, but what indicator can you give us on like how how massive you guys are as an operation.
I think so. 22 state footprint. I think at this point we are hovering around 1,000 employees.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so are you very segregated? Is it like church and state where you're on the, the acquisition side, or do you mix and mingle with the services side?
No, we are. I mean, we are an operating business, and I think importantly, I think there are a lot of private equity backed, what they call roll up strategies out there,
Yep.
businesses that grow by acquiring other businesses, and there are a lot of those out there, and a lot of them are really good at doing deals, of getting deals done, but not so great at integrating businesses into their system post acquisition. And I think, I personally think that the latter is the most important and the hardest thing to do. In
Right.
order to integrate businesses into the system, the acquisitions team has to be really well ingrained into the operations team. And so my purview includes getting deals done, but also making sure that they're successful post acquisition.
All right, so the reason why I have Nolan in today is I really think Nolan is, an authority here. He's got years in on this, an authority to help you guys, especially you young guys, the ones that are just getting going. They say the old adage, work smart, don't work hard. As a rain gutter contractor, we don't have that luxury, right? We're on ladders. The days are exhausting. You got to have to do both. You have to work harder and smarter. And so, I think Nolan could drop some real heavy knowledge here to give you young guys a strategy. The strategy is, if you know where you're ending up, you know how to start out down the road, right? It's like moving a pawn around the Monopoly board. If you know what properties you want to buy, you have a different strategy on how you move the pawn around the board. If you have an end game and you want to see a buyout, you want to, might be interested in somebody acquiring your business, and that is your exit strategy. There's steps that need to happen now. You need to run your business in a certain way, in a certain manner, in order to make that go your way and be advantageous to the deal. So Nolan here, and my hope is Nolan drops some science and some gems on us. I'm going to try to guide this. I have some very pointed questions, but Nolan, what say you? What kind of tips can you give these young guys that are just kind of framing out their business? What do they need to do as far as books or structure of the business? What steps can they take now to really improve on how they look to you or some other M&A entity that might be interested in a buyout or an acquisition at some point?
So before we get to books and records, I talk about revenue and the quality of a business's revenue.
Right.
Most of your audience here is gutter installers, right?
Generally, yeah, 95% of them.
Okay. So who might do a little bit of gutter cleaning, but it's mostly an install-based business. I think one thing that investors broadly and any business buyer cares a lot about is when they value a business, when they buy a business, is how cyclical is this business?
Right.
And to the extent that your business
contracts, right?
Yes, that's right. But to the extent that your business focuses on providing a capital service, a capital expenditure to people, large dollars that might be tied to new construction, especially if you're working as a sub to maybe roofers or builders.
Right.
Business is going to cycle pretty hard when the economy takes a turn. And so for that reason, a business that has customer concentration with roofers or builders, or that focuses more on new builds than it does on replacements, is going to be valued less than a business that sells fully to homeowners where they have 1,000 customers that each spend a couple $1,000s,
right,
rather than a handful of customers that spend big bucks. And so customer concentration, focusing more on the homeowner end market than the subcontractor end market. And then thirdly, I'd say a focus on services. Things like gutter cleaning tend to be more recession resistant, more recurring than a gutter install. And so think about your business as something that that should snowball. If you have customers who come back year after year, every new customer is done gravy rather than just the full basis of your business.
Right. Yeah. So, hopefully I'm speaking for the guys at home. A lot of this is very counterintuitive to the guys that have put 10 years in, let's say, on grinding to build a brand, an atmosphere where we are recognizable, we're a household name, where I need an install, you're going to call me. That coupled with the fact that the real meat in any given operation, like if I pull back the curtain on my business, if we're doing $400,000 in gutter cleanings, we're doing $2 million in installations. I take them both, right? And my cleaning base continues to grow and grow, and I have to push that to grow. But my meat and potatoes, right? The most meat on the bone is obviously on the install. So it kind of is mind blowing for the contractor to digest this and understand it. But once they do, I think they take a different approach. A lot of guys are not doing what they should be, which is simultaneously going after your installs and then stacking contracts. Services are important, and Nolan wants to see them. He wants to see that you have a written contract with a client and there's recurring services. That's how he's going to evaluate you. Nolan, what do these contracts, just to kind of like frame this for these guys, what do the contracts need to look like? Do they need to be some 300-page, document, or it could be very light, but it needs a little ink at the bottom and a John Hancock? Like, what exactly do you check the box off and say, okay, this is a valid contract? What does it need to look like?
You don't even need contracts, to be honest. All I want to see, and all a business buyer wants to see is, well, what really helps
keeps coming back to you.
Is just a history of recurring purchase behavior.
Okay.
You need a contract, but if you're providing a service that needs to be done on a regular basis, and you're doing a good enough job that your customers are coming back to you rather than going somewhere else every time they need it, that's worth something unto itself. Contracts are nice. Contracts. I mean,
right.
Look, you can cancel at any time. I mean, it doesn't need to be written or anything. But really, what matters is that the customer is coming back year after year, because Google's becoming no less expensive to buy customers from.
Sure.
Right? We want to do the most that we can with the customers that we already have.
So that's a good point for you guys at home. Everybody is crying about the same thing: the cost of generating leads, the cost of marketing. It's just gotten out of control, and the competition is through the roof. The efficacy of those options that we have at our fingertips, Facebook, Google, AdWords, even SEO, like the efficacy is sliding, right? It's just not as effective because everybody and their brother has a website or some sort of real estate that they're trying to get a click themselves with. So I will tell you guys, it's very expensive, and you have to be quite the hunter, quite the sales guy to go out and continue to get. My average ticket is around 8,000 on gutters because we're putting on oversized gutters and covers, but it's a lot of work. It's a big effort. It's a lot less work to find that customer that says, yeah, come twice, come 3 times, come 4 times a year, and just clock it, So I wouldn't say this is my tip, not Nolan's, but I wouldn't say go one way or the other. I'd say you need a hybrid. You need to do both at the same time. You need to figure out how to do both fairly well, but you have to build that client base with cleaning. Now, I own a digital marketing agency. I sell leads, right? I do a number of things. I'm building software, but I sell leads, and I can't tell you how many guys say, I don't want gutter cleaning leads. I'm like, are you kidding me? If I sell you this lead one time and you establish Mrs. Jones as a client, she should be a client forever. You should be touching her 4 or 5 times a year and get the gutters when she's ready for gutters, and get the roof, and get the soft wash. Like, you're the guy now, right? And I sell you this lead one time, but you're above gutter cleanings. It's a major oversight for a lot of guys.
Agreed.
What action steps do these guys need to be taking as they're like, a lot of these guys kind of have this like epiphany, this like awakenings moment, like 2 or 3 years in, where all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, all right, I got my feet underneath me. I need to start focusing on my business. And they start to get this longer distance vision where they're like, I do need an end game. I may want an exit strategy at some point. Like, how am I going to retire? I love seeing young guys in their 20s get that long-term vision, but we need somebody like you, Nolan, to help them not waste time or misstep. What action steps do they need to be taking inside their business today to build themselves in a way that they're going to be attractive to you and your competition?
So things that we already mentioned: quality of revenue, making sure that you have a diversified customer base and not just selling to large contractors and acting as a sub. Having a service mix to your business that is recurring rather than just one time.
Yep.
Ensuring that the work that you're doing is truly profitable, that your gross margin is healthy, and actually that works pretty well in concert with serving more homeowners than serving roofers or builders. And then on the administrative side of the business, highly recommend, and Frank, this is not biased by you, but I highly recommend implementing a CRM.
Sure.
You should not be writing quotes on paper. You
Absolutely.
should not be, billing on paper. You need to have real customer records that over a long period of time, so that you can then evidence to any potential buyer one day what your business actually looks like. And by the way, it makes it a lot easier to run your business in the interim too, and grow your business as well.
Now, there's got to be a reason why you brought that up. Tell me something. A lot of guys come to you and say, "Hey, we're interested. What am I worth? What will you pay for my business?" How many guys do you see, out of curiosity, that are still on paper?
A fair number, but they're just not addressable. Generally, just not addressable targets. That's not a very transactable business, and
Right.
it's a shame, because a lot of these business owners have spent decades maybe building their business, and it's a handful to run, and then it's very hard for them to sell, at least to someone like me.
I'm coming from a very selfish place. I'm a software architect. I'm curious on the analytics of my target audience. I mean, if you had a guess, you're in 22 states, you probably touch a lot of people. How many, what percentage do you think would be coming out of left field to knock on your door and kind of test the waters with you, and they're on paper? Is there like we're talking
I mean,
above
it's
25%, 20%?
no, no, it's 2025. I think maybe 10% won't even have QuickBooks in the very
Flying by the
very
seat of their pants.
right. So maybe 10%. I think, though, the fact of the matter is that's a hard business to scale. And so those businesses that don't have any QuickBooks or real CRM uh, operating in their business tend to be disproportionately small.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So it's a non starter anyway.
Yeah, it's a little self-fulfilling.
What is your target? Is there like a sweet spot as far as size that really attracts Ned Stevens? Like, are you, for the guys at home that are trying to push their thing, like, what is your sweet spot?
The bigger the better.
Okay, good to know that.
We certainly work in a very fragmented industry where there are a lot of small players, and so we'll look at businesses that have at least $300,000 of recurring revenue per year. Ideally, quite a bit more than that, but I'm always happy to talk to business owners who are even below that threshold to um, connect every 6 months or so, and help get them up to the level where they have a truly transactable business.
Awesome, awesome. In your experience, what expertise for the average rain gutter contractor is needed for scaling? And in establishing an exit strategy, is this something they need to? Is this chops they could establish on their own, or do they need advisement? Do they need a coach to do this? I guess I'm really trying to understand. Like, I could imagine the trepidation for the average guy reaching out to you. There's probably a lot of fear. Should they be a little bit more comfortable about trying to have this communication with you, or do you recommend they use a third party as an advisor? What is your approach to that?
I mean, I'm happy to talk to anyone about in the industry about pretty much anything, and having a conversation doesn't really have any bearing on a timeline to sell, and so very casual conversations I think can be helpful early on, because we can talk about your business. I can give you some pointers on how I would think about things and how I would shape the business over the next, who knows, 5 years, decade, to really create something of value. I'm happy to have those early conversations. Otherwise, I've seen several business owners in peer groups,
Yeah.
and the business owners who I meet who are in different peer groups, on average, run much better businesses than those business owners who are not in peer groups. I think
Interesting.
it can be very isolating being a business owner. You don't have peers necessarily in your own organization. We're
Right.
talking, we're in a fragmented industry. We're running small businesses, and so even if it's just the local guy down the road who runs a plumbing business, not even in the gutter industry, to the extent that you can connect with peers and talk through things like, hey, what are you doing with Google Local Services ads, or what are you, who are you using as a bookkeeper, et
Right.
cetera. I
Right.
think that can be super helpful.
So I'm seeing that a lot of guys are already kind of gravitating to this. Like we say, birds of a feather. But even internally inside of the industry, there's different subgroups. So social media has been good for that. Facebook, particularly with these Facebook groups, people are kind of coming together and bouncing ideas and concepts. It's really an amazing thing. We have our own group, Gutter Installer, right behind me. That group is, we have 8,500 plus rain gutter contractors there. But I mean, it's just this really cool community. And guys are very, very forthright and forthcoming with sharing information, sharing contacts, sharing third party vendors that they use for marketing or signage or whatever. I think it's really leveling the game up, and it's kind of fun to watch. I didn't have that when I started, man. 21 years out now, when I got going, there was nothing, not literally nothing. You had to kind of figure it out on your own and trial and error, make a lot of mistakes, spend a lot of money in the wrong places too.
Yeah, yeah. And the
That's
thing is, there are so many other people solving the same problems that you have, or that have solved the same problems that you're looking at.
right.
And so I find it, in the result. I mean, the proof is in the result, which is, when I talk to business owners who are highly connected with other business owners in similar industries, anywhere in home services, their businesses tend to be growing faster and be more profitable than business owners who are not so receptive to learning from others.
Awesome. Well, so if you guys are watching this, you're already there, right? You found this because you're in these groups. So kudos to you. You're already halfway there. How fast do you guys get deals done? What's timeline expectations on something like that?
So we've bought 25 businesses since I started the program 5 years ago.
Okay.
At this point, we're acquiring about a business every month,
Wow.
and we can, once we have all the data that we need to perform diligence, we can usually get an offer within 1 to 2 weeks, and
Wow.
then the deal closed within about 6 weeks thereafter.
That's very fast. That's awesome. So if I wanted to engage with you, tell everybody what are action steps? How does it work? What are the next kind of, if I show intention, what are the next steps that follow that?
So I will be at GutterCon in next month.
Yeah,
So
coming up.
feel free, if you're going to be there, come up to me. I'll be hanging out with Frank a little bit.
Yep.
And otherwise, you can visit nedshome.com/acquisitions. You can submit a form fill there. You can read testimonials from other business owners who have sold to us, and otherwise you can give me a call or send me an email at Nolan@nedshome NEDSHOME.com. And I think we can probably put that in the video description as well.
Very cool. Now, I know you to be very approachable. You always come up to me and talk, and we always earmark a little time and have a private chat. And for those that are listening, Nolan's another guy just like one of us. So he's approachable. He'll shoot straight. I want to see this. I mean, we're kind of taking this full circle now, and it's kind of fun to talk about. I'm really interested to hear maybe some success stories, some post-acquisition stories. You don't have to name names, but and don't fluff it either. Like, tell us the truth. Tell us some cool stories, or a story if you have, on somebody that did sell to Ned, and what they're doing now, what their life looks like, and the success of it all.
Yeah. So of the 25 businesses that we bought, I mean, these are all family-owned businesses and true owner-operators. And I think everyone has a different reason to sell. And note to our completely alike. Some business owners are looking to retire, and they're at retirement age. A lot of business owners, especially in our industry, are looking to start another business in an industry that is not as labor intensive as others,
They got the
right?
taste and they want to change things up, right?
Yeah, it's a hard industry to operate in.
It's
There's a
brutal.
lot of there's a lot of operations management in the field that has to be done, and that can be really exhausting. And guys calling out, and et cetera, et cetera, and so a lot of guys want to are maybe in their 30s, maybe in their 40s, still have a career ahead, would like to cash out a little bit, diversify their wealth,
Right.
and maybe start something new. And so one of the business owners I bought out a couple of years ago, he had built this gutter business into something actually pretty impressive, a gutter cleaning business with around $3 million in revenue,
Wow.
good reputation, lots of customer repeat purchase behavior. Had a son who was only about 4 or 5 years old at the time, but was not spending nearly as much time as he'd like with his son. And his wife was in the business too, and it was really kind of consuming their lives. And they wanted to sell so that they could spend more time with their son.
Love it.
And also, since then, I think they're opening an ice cream shop. And so that was something
Cool.
that they wanted to do for fun, far from our industry. But I think they've done really well in the sale, and it's enabled them a lot of freedom.
I love it. I want to ask a question that, I'm always trying to get into the mind of the contractor because I am one, right? So, and I want to also kind of rip down walls and try to really bridge things between, the contractor's nervousness or reservations and the potential deal they could have if they did something with Ned's home. Let's talk about, obviously it's a deal, right? This is a transaction. Ned's is trying to get the best deal they can. It's just business. I understand this. And then the contractor, and you just nailed it. I mean, these are mom and pop, these are family run businesses. There's a lot of emotion, all right? A lot of heartstrings there. They want the best deal too. I want to me, and I've been doing business a long time. I own 5 businesses. I'm involved in a lot of different things. I really can parse emotion, and I do know a lot about M&A. So let's talk about, it's a transaction, right? This is math. This is valuations and multipliers. These are industry set, right? I mean, you guys, you're not ugly monsters. You're not trying to take something from somebody and wreck a home. This is transactional. How do you speak to that these are industry numbers? The multipliers that are used in any given industry are not set by you. I mean, sure, anything's negotiable, but I guess this is all part of preparation, an education on this stuff, the stuff I'm asking about here, the numbers and how it works. And we don't have to get into the nitty gritty. That is part of prepping somebody, even in the early years, on an exit strategy. I think an education on how M&A works kind of could toughen guys up and sort of toughen the skin, thicken the skin for how it goes and what it is worth, because everybody thinks they're worth a lot more than they truly are. And you're only worth what somebody's willing to pay, right? So what do you lean on? I guess let's get to that. What do you lean on when it comes, and I'm not saying what is that multiple, but like give a crash course on how this works, whether it's the rain gutter industry or software technology. Like give a little crash course on how valuation works, right? EBITDA, whatever numbers you guys determine are most critical, and then what a multiplier is and how that applies.
Sure. So things that make a business more valuable versus less valuable. Things that make a business more valuable are more recurring revenue, less customer concentration, really diversified base of customers, pricing that's in line with market, and margins, gross margins, less COGS that are healthy. And that's going to be different. Healthy gross margin in gutter install is going to be different than that in gutter cleaning, going to be different than that in power wash, etc. And then other things that make a business more valuable is a great team. If you've got people in place who are there for a career and who do a good job, want to stick around post acquisition, that's a huge asset in your business. And a
Right.
buyer, or at least the right buyer, is going to see the same and pay more for a business that's going to have that continuity, that has that knowledge and expertise. I mean, that's super important when we look at businesses.
Sure.
Um, Value of your hard assets also plays some role in the valuation of a business. If you've got an old fleet of beaters, you're going to be worth less than if you've got a bunch of gleaming new box trucks that that are in great shape.
Right.
Um,
Back to the
and
numbers.
so
Right? It's a business transaction, right? It's what is the value? What is the hard value of that asset, and that's what it's worth, right? I mean, there's no emotion with this.
That's right. And then your historical performance. We want to see that you're a healthy business that's been growing year over year. I think that's also quite important. And then lastly, we'll get into multiples. The profitability of the business, the bottom line, EBITDA, or in smaller businesses, the metric that's often used is called seller's discretionary earnings, which you
Right.
can Google. And seller's discretionary earnings is the sellers or the business owners' full financial benefit from the business.
Correct.
It's the salary that you paid yourself. It's the salary that you paid your spouse who doesn't actually show up to work.
The fuel you didn't pay for, and
Right.
the Amazon
Uh,
purchases.
the kitchen renovation that you
Uncle Louis
did.
did. Yeah.
Right. And so it's a really exhaustive view of, okay, how profitable is this business really? And inclusive of all what I just rolled through were what we would call add backs.
Right.
And so you take seller's discretionary earnings and you usually multiply it by some number of years to determine the valuation of a business. And of course, there's a range, as I mentioned, all those factors that determines what sort of multiplier you're going to pay for a business, or that a business should transact at. And so usually for, let's say, a couple $1 million business in our space, you'd usually sell for somewhere between 2 and 5 times that seller's discretionary earnings.
Okay. There you go, guys. EBITDA 2 to 5 is the multiplier in that range thereabouts. What would you need to see to hit that high end of the multiple, the 5? Like a very very mature company with, or is it location? Like what are the things that really let you hit the scale on the high end?
It's all those things that I mentioned. A great team, highly recurring revenue, uh, healthy margins, good historical growth.
Okay.
All those things are, high quality hard assets. All those things help you hit the high end of that range, or potentially higher. I'll also say larger businesses tend to trade for higher multiples. They're rarer. They have more stickiness in their marketplaces. They
Right.
have more, brand awareness, and so will sell for higher multiples.
So you guys immediately rebrand, trucks get relettered, everything becomes Ned's home.
Case by case.
Interesting. So
Case by case.
some of them you keep as is. You
For at least some period of time.
yeah.
Yes, and I think no two businesses are the same, and so the way that we integrate a business into our own, something that we're really thoughtful about, and that we take a really customized approach to.
Excellent. Now, do you also create scenarios where you may keep the owner on to manage for you? Is that very common, or is that not so common?
That's common. That's something that we love to do. If a business owner is interested in sticking around with our business and continuing to grow, and they know their business better than anyone else does, and so we can incentivize that business owner to continue on with us by giving them some amount of equity in our business, and or some sort of earnout program tied to revenue or EBITDA targets post acquisition that can be really lucrative for business owners.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen. Let's talk about GutterCon, and then we'll wrap. I'm excited to see you at GutterCon. Nolan has been there for years now. You're going to be available. I mean, you're bouncing around the show. You guys have a booth?
No booth. We're sponsoring one of the Top Golf bays,
Cool. Smart.
and I'll be speaking on Friday morning.
Okay. So if I know your face. I could see you across the room. But for those that don't know you or just seeing you for the first time on this video, what's the best way to kind of tee up connecting with you while you're there? Should they shoot you an email through the website and establish a connection, and then you guys could get communicating to find each other there? Or what's the best way to get you?
That'd be great. Shoot me an email. We can set up some time to hang out or come up to me at the conference. Either way.
Guys, Nolan's a great guy. Not to be, intimidated by it or anything. I mean, usually I have a bullseye on my back for Nolan. He's always asking me how things are going. And buddy, I'm getting close to, there's a lot of VC where I live in Connecticut, right? I'm in Greenwich, Connecticut. Everybody and their brother is a venture capitalist, it seems like. And we're getting closer because the software is really getting somewhere. So I'm going to give you a crack too, man. We're going to have a chat, and I'll open the books and let you know what we look like. But Nolan's a great guy. I'm very comfortable with him. You should be too. If you're interested in getting with him at GutterCon, make sure you get to gutter-con.com. Book your room, book your tickets, make sure you're on board for it. And of course, always reach out, DM me if you guys have any questions at all. I bring guests on here to enrich you, and Nolan is certainly a wealth of knowledge. Nolan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Frank.
Good to see you. I'll see you in a few weeks, my man.
Looking forward to it.
All right, likewise.